fostered by all the problems that the modern world has created. Marx, Darwin, Freud, psychoanalysis and all these kind of things, because they're not going to hold up. Newton was already falling apart. Darwin was already, in the scientific world, was falling apart. The pop world, it didn't. And then he said, and what's going to happen is there's going to be a global experiment led by the West that he called scientistic pragmatism, rationalistic pragmatism. With that brain and with that body and with those machines, we are going to think that we will solve all the human problems with no reference to the upper story at all. Except for people who in their private life might want to go to church and sing in Russian or something. But that's not going to be the functioning, motivating power in them. And he said that this scientific pragmatism is going to be tried on a global level. It's going to be spawned in the West and pushed on the rest of the world. And he said, and when it hits its apex, the evil and the pain and the suffering and the madness that it's going to cause among human beings will make Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia look like a kindergarten. That's what he said. And then he says, and if it wins, this and not material destruction, and then he used the very words of C.S. Lewis, will mean the end of mankind as we know it. Well, I'm afraid we're into that full force. We're into that full force. That's the dominating mood. And so if you just look at ourselves and look at our parishioners, who do we have? We don't have many Marxists left. We have a lot of people killing themselves. We have many nationalists. But most of the Americans who've been to college are scientific pragmatists. There we are. So it seems that that's what postmodernism is. Nothing but. And it's also debunking. Always debunking the waterfall. It's nothing but my feeling. The cosmos, it's nothing but planets whirling around. It's nothing but processes of biological evolution that are totally accidental and so on. It's nothing but the dialectics of history and economy. What is it? Well, we'll handle it with our science, our rationalism. But the rationalism and the science and the pragmatism won't have any intuitive insight that will form it and keep it human and allow it to be used for good as it is supposed to be. Because these things are not evils in themselves. They're not evils. To be Russian is not a sin. Right? They're not evils in themselves. Although Irenaeus, who became the Metropolitan, said, Grek et grech. Greek, that's a sin. But there we are. Now, I would just claim tonight, I'm sorry I'm going on so long, I'll just claim tonight that that's where we're at. In a whole complex entangling of that is working differently in every single human being that you see. But what you could say for sure is that our children and our students, they're being raised in this. They are being raised in this. They are. And I would even say that all our troubles, even as churches, are because of this. In one way or another. Now, I didn't leave myself much time to say what to do about it. So I can just quote the saying of a desert father named Pombo. This Pombo was a great guy. I love him. Disciple of Anthony. In fact, he asked Anthony once, what did the guy do to be saved and please God? Anthony said to him, whoever you are, never forget God. Keep God before your eyes. And by the way, he didn't say orthodoxy, he didn't say the Bible, he didn't say the liturgy, he didn't say the canon law book, he said God. He said, whatever you do, do according to the Holy Scriptures. Again, he didn't say the fathers, he didn't say the canons, he didn't say the rules, he didn't say what Baba told you. He said the Holy Scriptures. And then he said, in whatever place you are, don't leave that place easily, because the devil will have you jumping around like a yo-yo. But then Pambo said to Anthony, what should I do? And Anthony said, as for you, Pambo, don't think more highly of yourself than you ought. Don't trust in your own righteousness. Don't be anxious about the past. It's over. And guard your mouth and your stomach. Well, I would say if we did that, we'll be okay. But I want to quote Pambo, because one of the lines of Pambo was, he said, and this is deep, mystical, magnificent orthodoxy. He said, if you have a heart, you can be saved. That's what he said. If you have a heart, you can be saved. So the question is, do we have a heart? You can't preach the gospel to people without a heart. They don't have antennas to receive it. So then what do you do? Do you shut up? What do you do? Well, you make an act of faith and say, you can't kill that heart completely, whatever C.S. Lewis or anybody else says. Maybe you can. Sometimes some scripture passages make you think you can. Driven by the wind, creatures to be raised and shot or something. You know, it's not very nice, the apocalyptic writings of the Bible. However, what we have to do is a very simple thing. We have to make sure that we have hearts. We have to be sure that we remain human. We have to make sure that we remain sane. And my friend Father Paul, who's on my mind these days, he once was asked at an ecumenical meeting, what is the fruit and contribution of being Orthodox? And he said, to preserve people's sanity, wholeness. It's only when you walk in here, see all of this, hear these sounds, that you know why you have a brain, why you have sensation, why you have eyes, why you have ears, why you have a nose, why you have a mouth, why you have a chest. You got to have a chest, right? Why you have everything you have. Simeon, the new theologian, even gets into other parts of the body in rather great detail. Why you have. You know what you have hands for. You know you have walls for. And they were all anointed with the Spirit of God. And that you are told that you are made in God's image. That you have this faculty of insight into reality that can order everything, from scientific study in the lab to looking at a waterfall. It's there. And that is what makes us human, and that is what the crucified Christ guarantees to us. But He had to be crucified for us to have that. And it's so interesting. I once read all the Psalms in terms of the heart. Enlarge my heart, purify my heart, wound my heart, illumine my heart, cleanse my heart. My son, give me your heart. But probably the most important line of it all would be, break my heart. Because the only sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken heart. In fact, Barsanuphius in John, he said, you have no discernment and you're in total darkness until your heart is broken. Broken how? By a double power. The mercy of God, the magnificence of God, and the misery and wretchedness of what we are without Him. Well, this postmodern world has removed Him in a more insidious way than the modern world. Because in the modern world, all they could produce were martyrs. Now, because I didn't time myself well here, I didn't have a time to get into how I think religion in American life has fed into all of this. It's just another version of it in many, many ways. Whether it's liberal or conservative, whether it's fundamentalist or New Age or whatever, it's been poisoned by this immensely. Because the big mistake there was to fight the modern world by making the Bible into something it was never meant to be. The Bible was about the heart and the intuition, not about evolution and days and planets and so on. It was a pseudomorphosis and a blasphemy of major proportion. What happened? And that all happened because at one point in Western church history, people began to read the Bible like the Muslims read the Quran. And if we had time enough, I could prove to you that sola scriptura came directly from the dialogue between the medieval schoolmen and the Muslims. Our Bible is not a Koran, and our Word is not a book. It's a person. It's a person. And it's a person who has a heart. It's a person who's human. Now, what do we have to do then? Well, we have to do what hopefully we preach in our churches all the time and hopefully practice. Pray. Struggle, think, study. Don't be a fool. But most important of all, we have the heart, because the heart is where you see. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see. It's interesting, in Hebrew, there's no word for mind. The Shema of Israel says you should love the God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your flesh. There's no word for body even. Basar is the only word they have. Leb is the only word they have. And that is interesting. The Greek New Testament put mind in there because they want the Greeks to understand what they're talking about. But mind is not in the Deuteronomy. Because the heart is that central function. That heart is the faculty that the modern world has. We made a cardiectomy. We removed the heart and are no longer human. But we have to hang on to that heart, because that's what makes us human. But that heart is not only an affective organ. It's not it's emotional or affective at all. Pascal was wrong when he said the heart has reasons the mind doesn't know. That's part of the problem. Our fathers say the mind descends into the heart. And there you see God and pray and have an intuition of reality. But it needs to be illumined. It needs to be enlarged. It needs to be cleansed. And most of all, it needs to be broken by the love of God. So the last, and I really have to end because I'm going too long, but the last word is, it's all about God. And God is love. I can't resist saying that someone asked our son Johnny, he's a priest, probably sat on your lap in Wappingers at one point, certainly was altar boy with you, said to him, what's your dad doing now that he's not teaching class anymore and being the dean of the seminary? He said, I don't know what he's doing. He said, but rumor has it that he's traveling around taking every opportunity that he can to remind Orthodox Christians that church is about God. Church is not about church. The Bible's not about the Bible. The icons are not about the icons. The liturgy is not about the liturgy. Theology is not about theology. It's about God. And it's about the merciful, loving God who becomes a man and dies the most vile, despicable death on the planet Earth so that we could be human. Not just divine, because you can't be divine unless you're first human. I quoted Callistus Ware the other day, who always used to say, we all know as Orthodox that God became man to make man God. But we should also remember, God became man to make man man. We are not human without God. That's the whole point of tonight's talk. But people don't kill each other anymore with that. They say, if you want it, it's okay. And then provide something else. So the final word is, you can't teach people this. You can't beat it into them. You can't do it by legislation. You can't do it by bombs. You can't do it by gimmicks and tricks. You can't do it by seminary classes in pastoral theology, alas. You can only do it by love. And love is suffering, love is sacrifice, but love is what makes us God-like. And we begin loving in our own homes with our own kids. That's where it all starts. And that's where it all ends. Because there's nothing beyond that. But once that happens, once we say to God, God, let me be a human being. Let me be your child. Let me love real people with real love. Then the Baba in the village says, no problem. Because we're human. But without that, but still that begs one more question. What is love? Everybody's for love. Madonna's for love. Bill Clinton's for love. Saddam Hussein and some Bin Laden are probably for love in their own understanding.